We could see the hill in front of us just a short distance away, and in spite of the dreadful, ominous feeling that something was seriously off, my ego got in the way of my survival instinct, and I insisted on doing the very thing we should have never done. Welcome to my nightmare. If you enjoy tonight's story, leave a comment below, share this video with a friend, and hit the like and subscribe buttons so more viewers can enjoy the content. Thanks. Now let's get back to the story. In 2009, when I was about 14, me and my buds decided to go exploring in our rural town in Cambria County, Pennsylvania. We were just a bunch of neighborhood kids used to playing in each other's backyards or in the woods near our homes. This one time, we decided to kick up the excitement level by several notches and decided to check out the other side of a big hill, which was pretty far deep into the woods. Locals around town generally told the kids to avoid going that far from home, but given our ages, we felt we were old enough to make the decision on our own. There were about 9 of us, our ages were between 10 and 14. We packed our lunch and snacks for the day and headed out. We estimated our day trip wouldn't take more than 3 to 4 hours, and then we'd be back by dinner time. This was in the summer, which meant we could stay out later. Lord knows we were itching for some fun, given that winter seemed to have dragged on forever. In the colder months, there wasn't time to do much of anything after school, since it used to get dark so early in the evenings. But now, finally, the long-awaited summer months were here, and my friends and I intended to stay outdoors as much as possible. We started trudging into the woods, chattering about all the things we might encounter. It was common for everyone to try and outdo each other's gory horror stories on these outings. After about an hour, we were pretty far into the woods. By now we were tired and thirsty, and the incessant need for chatter had definitely worn off. We walked another 15 minutes when suddenly, we found a well-worn path in the dirt that was probably made by trekkers, although we didn't see or hear anyone nearby. That was odd, given that there were no other signs of footprints indicating that somebody had walked this far into the woods before us. It was as if the trail appeared out of nowhere. As we moved along, we stumbled upon an open clearing in the woods. Maybe it was a campsite that had been recently put to use. We could see that the supposed campers had made beds out of fresh brush, although there were no tents or sleeping bags around, none that we could see. There was also a fire pit with wood neatly stacked close to it, almost like somebody planned to come back for the night and use it again. Whether it was a team of campers or just some Boy Scouts using the site for a training exercise, we decided to use the clearing for the time being to take a load off and relax for a while. It was cool in the woods, especially under the shade of the trees. And although it was still very early in the summer, we were hot and tired from all the walking we'd done up to that point. We needed to recharge with our snacks and packed lunches, and hydrate with some water. After lunch, we played near a stream that was meandering through the woods. It had a small waterfall, which made the current pretty fast. We kept throwing rocks into it, trying to see who could skip rocks the farthest. Some of the kids took their shoes and socks off and waded into the shallow end, chasing small fish and frogs. We played until it was almost late afternoon. The sun was still shining, but since we had a long walk back home, some of the older kids decided we needed to head back home. But me and my pal, Joey, we weren't quite ready to call it quits. The hill we'd planned on climbing was another half-hour away, and we figured we'd look really cool if we were the only 2 who made it that far and back. After all, we'd planned an adventure, and we were determined to go home with heroic tales of our daring feat that day. Our friends were content staying by the stream, playing games like hide and seek behind rocks and trees. They didn't want to go any farther into the woods, or stop their fun for us. So, they told us they'd wait an hour in this spot, which would give us enough time to complete our mission. They had no choice but to wait for us, because they'd get in trouble with the grown-ups if anybody got left behind in the woods. It was all for on and one for all, and that meant going home together, and preferably all in one piece. Joey and I needed to hurry up if we were going to make it back in time to join the others. It was going to take half an hour each way to the hill and back, and that's really all the time we needed. As we walked away from the group, we could hear their laughter and chatter getting fainter and fainter while we advanced towards the hill. We were pretty deep into the woods now, and the trees were so thick that it was almost hard to see the sun above the treetops. At one point Joey said the silence that enveloped us, and the dark woods, were making him feel really creeped out. I didn't want to seem like a scaredy cat, so I convinced him that we should keep going. I told him it wasn't going to be much longer now, and did he really want the others to harass and taunt us if we told them we got scared and came back before we got to the hill? But he said he didn't care. He'd tell the others that he'd twisted his ankle or something. He really wanted to turn back around, and I didn't listen. And just as we were contemplating our next steps, we heard a small branch snap. We stood still for a brief moment thinking it was a deer or some other wildlife. But as we walked towards the hill, it became apparent that there were more branches or twigs snapping close by, almost like somebody was walking alongside us, deep in the tree line, so that our eyes could not detect who or what made the sound. I hated the idea of turning back without having made it to the hill, but now my sixth sense was telling me that maybe Joey was right. Maybe we, or rather I, was being plain stupid for venturing this deep into the woods without the other kids or a grown-up. I could see that Joey was visibly stressed. For some reason the atmosphere became so tense, in that moment, almost threatening, that it seemed like a bad idea to talk out loud. So Joey, wanting to offer a logical explanation, said there might be hunters in the woods nearby, and if we didn't want to be mistaken for deer, we should probably head back towards the group now. We could see the hill in front of us just a short distance away, and in spite of the dreadful, ominous feeling that something was seriously off, my ego got in the way of my survival instinct, and I insisted we were going to complete the mission come heck or high water. "Joey," I said to him, "it's literally right there, we can just run to it. Tell you what, we won't climb it, we'll tell the others we made it halfway up, but since we didn't want them to be late on our account, we came back. We'll just run to the foot of the hill and walk back, or run back, if you want me to." Joey looked like he was about to be sick from stress, but he wasn't one to leave a friend alone, and so he agreed to trudge onwards with me. We needed to take a sharp left into the woods to get to the path that led to the hill. And as we did, we heard a shriek that made us nearly jump out of our skins. It was a large bird, a kind I'd never encountered before. Whatever it was big. Thinking back on that day now, it was almost like the bird was trying to warn us to stay away from that path. But we were so close to our destination now, and I for one, did not want to go back and tell the others that we'd been scared off by a loud bird. We'd walked another few feet when all of a sudden, I spotted something hanging from a tree in the distance. What the heck could be dangling from a tree? I felt Joey grab my arm, and that's when I realized, whatever was dangling from the tree, it was no animal, it was definitely what I'd call humanoid. Panic set in, and I froze. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. As if in a trance, I kept walking towards it, heart pounding, my legs getting weaker, and yet I could not seem to stop myself. It was as if something was compelling me to get closer to the body. When I got close enough to see what it was, Joey and I let out a scream. It was the body of a human-like creature hanging upside down, dangling from the tree by its claw-like, bird-like feet. It looked somewhat like a woman, but like a demon woman. It had long red hair and greenish-gray skin. Its eyes were like glowing embers, and it was staring right at us. Suddenly it opened its grotesque mouth and let out a blood-curdling screech. That was enough to wake us from our trance-like state. We turned around and ran back towards the others. We didn't dare turn around and see if we were being followed. All the while, that god-awful screeching continued. The faster we ran, the more we could hear twigs and branches snapping alongside us, as if something was running next to us, chasing us, keeping up with us in the woods. We could feel it, although we did not see it. We ran faster and faster until the noises got fainter, and then it stopped. That's when we realized that we had caught up to our friends. They saw how scared we were and stared, bombarding me and Joey with questions. We weren't about to answer any questions just then, no sir, we just wanted out of the woods. Plus, as the older ones in the group, we didn't think it was a good idea to scare the younger kids, so Joey said he saw a black bear and we needed to get out of there fast. It was dusk by the time we got home, and although all the kids knew something had happened in the woods to me and Joey, neither of us said a word to the others as we walked home. Joey and I agreed to meet up at my porch in about an hour, but first we had to wash up and get ready for supper. I sat down to eat with my little sister, younger brother, and my parents, but I stayed mostly quiet and told them I was tired from the day's outing. I knew Joey would be swinging by in a little bit with his 2 older brothers, as kids weren't allowed out after dinner by themselves. In fact, the rule in our rural community had always been that after dinner, and by dusk, if anyone was to venture outside, be it a grown-up or a kid, it had to be 2 or more walking or driving together, unless there was a good reason they couldn't partner up with somebody. But when Joey walked up the front porch, he wasn't just accompanied by his older brothers, but also his father, who was carrying his hunting rifle. It wasn't long before my dad joined them on the porch, and that's when me and Joey told them the whole story of what we'd seen in the woods that day. We promised to show them the spot the next morning, thinking they weren't going to believe us otherwise, but to our surprise our fathers told us they already knew about it, as did all the old-timers in the village. They said it was something that had been reported by the first European settlers that came to live here, which would be our ancestors, I'm guessing. They'd heard about it from the Native Americans, and eventually they'd encountered the creature themselves. Joey and I were shocked to hear this. They said it was something that was kept from the kids, but that's why there were rules about how far we could venture into the woods, and that we needed to listen to the grown-ups for our own safety, and to make sure that we kept the other kids out of there too. Joey's dad said the women in the village knew about it too. That's why they always made crosses of juniper and holly and hung them over the doors and windows of their homes. I was shocked to hear this. I had always thought it was more like an air freshener or a natural bug repellent, but come to find out there was some sinister, supernatural reason for all of this. Yes, said my father, you boys are old enough now to hear about it, but not tonight. Tomorrow morning you'll join us in Fellowship Barn used for community meetings, and we'll go over everything, including everything we have to do to make sure it doesn't enter the village. And with that, Joey, his dad, and brothers went home. The next week or so everyone in the neighborhood, especially all the kids that had gone into the woods, made and hung extra crosses of juniper and holly for doorways and windows. The men of the village burned a nightly bonfire at the entrance of the woods. Able-bodied men, old men, as well as men without young families kept vigil by the fire for 8 nights. They prayed some peculiar prayers, it sounded like chanting, and then they sprinkled different herbs and spices into the fire like sweet-smelling resin wood, and salt crystals, even though those were hard to come by. Meanwhile, all the women and children were made to stay in the fellowship barn on those nights. The women also kept fires burning outside the barn, encircled with rock boundaries, to keep the fires from spreading. After the 8th night, things went back to normal for the most part, but every time I heard an owl or an eagle screech, I panicked just a little as my mind recalled that fateful day in the woods. Our pastor reminded us every Sunday to pray for protection for ourselves and everyone in our community, and I can say that I never took the opportunity to pray first thing in the morning or at night for granted ever again. It's been over a decade since all of that happened, and all the kids that went into the woods that day are now old enough to participate in the same fire and protection rituals that our elders performed. But we've been sworn to secrecy that we can never talk about the details to any outsider, that is anybody that doesn't live in that rural neighborhood, which would include all of you listening to this story. The only thing I can tell you is that there is stuff that happens in everyday lives that defies logic, that can't be easily explained away, but know that there are rituals and prayers to ward off evil, or trouble, or whatever you want to call it, depending on what you believe. We don't always need to know the how and why, but if need be, they just might save your life,